News Talk 94.5, WPTI, 96.7 FM, WTOB. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. This morning, you have Garrett Ray and Brice Payne in the studio, and we are talking about tailoring your financial jersey for a perfect retirement fit. How you doing, Brice?
Well, I have a monkey off my back, Garrett, as do you. The Broncos and the Panthers finally checked one off in the W column.
Yeah, I guess we got to, honestly, I think for both of our teams, we got to be thankful for the weeks that we're going to check off, because I'm still not convinced we're going to have too many of those in the future, but it is good to get the zero monkey off the back for sure.
How long do you think Brice is going to stay on the Panthers team?
There were some rumblings of him being dealt to the Miami Dolphins last week, and I think that could be a reality by the time we get to next week, just because the Dolphins also lost their second string QB. So Tua's out with a concussion, second string guy goes down with an injury, so they were on their third with no backup there. So
there you go.
I'd be curious at that.
Well, please send him to an AFC team. As a Broncos fan, I can use all the Bryce Youngs out there that we can get. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this weekend morning. I know it's been a wet week. Hopefully we have a little bit of sunshine this weekend. Garrett, why don't you lead us off on the Wealth Guardian Service Salute, if you would?
Absolutely. So we want to take a moment out of every episode, as we always do every week, to thank our men and women in uniform and our community first responders. We know that it is because of your efforts that we all sleep a little sounder at night. And a special shout out to the families who support your men and women in uniform and those first responders. We know that oftentimes the burden falls on you to stay strong.
And you're often overlooked, so thank you. I second that on my end here from the Wealth Guardians. All right, now, as we do before we get into the meat and potatoes of the topic, we like to ask ourselves a question so that you out there have an opportunity to better get to know your Wealth Guardian's financial planner. So this week, the question we're asking ourselves, and we can ask you at the same time, is, Garrett, if you were forced to go into the Olympics, what sport would you have the best chance of competing in?
So I've got a good answer for this. My response would be rowing. I actually, in the Navy, I had a buddy of mine who went to the Naval Academy. He was a rower for the Academy and introduced me to the sport when I was in the Navy. So I actually started some training with him. And then even after leaving the Navy, fell in love with the sport all through my 20s, actually competed nationally, and trained with a couple of the guys who were gearing up for, at the time, the Rio de Janeiro Olympics in 2016.
Oh, cool.
So I was not quite as fast as those guys, but was definitely in the same boat, actually, as a few of them that did make it.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, it's in a previous life, I was definitely more competitive in the sport of rowing, so I'd have to say that.
Very good. All right. Well, for me, the only sport that I lettered in high school was sharpshooting. So since I went to a military high school, we had that opportunity. So I was actually fairly good at that. And a steady hand, I guess, is what it was. And anyway, so that would be mine. Anything that actually required physical strength or endurance or speed, probably not going to be my strength, but I can keep a steady hand.
I've been working with Brice for years, and I just learned something about him today. So that's really interesting.
There you go. All right. Well, let's go ahead now and get into tailoring your financial jersey for a perfect retirement fit. Since Garrett and most of North Carolina, as well as myself as a Broncos fan, are celebrating our first win of the NFL season from last week, we're going to be talking about NFL jerseys here and what we can correlate that between retirement planning. So first one here is every jersey has a number, right? Every jersey has a number. So every retirement plan should also have a number.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you're probably asking, well, that number is probably what your net worth is. All right. Yeah. So every retirement plan should also have a number, but that is not the number that is most important.
That's great.
The most important number is your income. Yeah. Well, where are you getting your income in retirement? So let's pull back just a little bit. Garrett, when you and I are sitting down with a couple or an individual that comes in and wants to go through the retirement planning process with us, the 4-meeting process, they will oftentimes, when we talk about the assets that they have, the income that they have, and then the income that they will have in retirement and their expenses, we all know our assets. We have a good idea of what we have. We have an idea of what our income is. We don't necessarily have a good idea of what our expenses are, but when it comes to income, there's kind of a misnomer. A lot of people will think when they're taking a distribution from their investments and putting it into their checking account, they call that income. But really, as financial planners, we don't view that as income. All you're doing there is moving money from one account to another account. When we refer to income, we are talking about money that you are getting from an outside source. Your investments are not an outside source. You already own that. So an example of income would be, the main one for everyone is Social Security, right? Sure. Almost everybody gets Social Security or is entitled to it, will be entitled to it. But, some people have additional forms of income as well. A pension, and it might be a pension that doesn't have a COLA on it. It might be a pension that does have a COLA on it. Some people have passive income in retirement, a pension, or their landlord. Yeah, landlord is a common one, or some kind of rental income out there. So that is actually the more important number than the assets that you have. I can't tell you what a fallacy it is that somebody says, hey, I've heard that you can't retire until you have $1 million.
Oh, those rules of thumb.
That is like somebody say, hey, I hear that you can't be healthy until you weigh 170 pounds. That is absolutely ridiculous. Everyone is different. If you only spend $2,000 a month and your Social Security is going to be $2,500 a month, you don't need to have $1 million saved up.
Exactly. That's it. No, you bring up a great point. Income certainly is that other number. And just to kind of emphasize your point a little bit more, the reason we're not as worried about the number of assets in your accounts and that the outside sources of income, Social Security, pension, maybe some land, rental income, that sort of like, is because that is the number we need to establish first to decide if we need to make the difference up and pull your investments in your nest egg.
And how much?
How
quickly?
Exactly. And does that grow year over year? Do you have basically some smoothing out there where your expenses may drop off? Let's say you pay off a mortgage in the next 5 years. So there's a lot of things that we consider, and that income number is absolutely the most important.
It's all about math, Garrett. You're an engineer. I'm a math teacher. It's all about math. And that number is, you say the most important number. That doesn't mean you can't overlook your expenses, because that's going to, again, if you're spending $2,000, what you need to have as income certainly differs from somebody who's spending $8,000 a month, right? So it's all math. You got to consider the expenses, the assets, and the income. You have to make some assumptions on what the rate of inflation is going to be, what the growth on your investments is going to be, what the COLA on Social Security is going to be year in and year out. And another thing that's going to be important, which this is a brilliant segue, by the way, is the taxes that you're going to pay. The taxes. So there is a lot of different types of taxes out there. Now, let me ask you this. The reason I say this is because we've got our next seminar coming up, and you're invited to it, Taxes and Retirement. So if you haven't retired out there yet, or if you haven't filed for Social Security yet, listen up just for a second. You probably have a pretty good idea of what AGI is, Adjusted Gross Income. You might even have a good idea of what MAGI is, Modified Adjusted Gross Income. You very well might even have a good idea of what long-term and short-term capital gains is. But let me throw this term out there. Have you ever heard, or do you know what provisional income is? If you've never filed for Social Security, and I just asked you what provisional income is, unless you're really knowledgeable in the field or you do your homework, you probably have no idea what Garrett and I are talking about when we mention provisional income.
Most people don't.
That's because it's only relevant, or only becomes relevant to you, once you file for Social Security. Until then, it is a completely irrelevant term, and you've probably never bothered understanding what it is. You might not have ever even heard it come up in a conversation. But once you retire and you file for Social Security, provisional income is now going to become just as important as what you have known AGI to be. It's going to determine whether or not your Social Security is taxed at 0%, at 50%, or at 85%. It's going to determine what Medicare bracket you fall in. It's enormously important. So if you don't know what provisional income is, or what sources of income contribute to your professional income, then I really encourage you to call us and register to attend our Taxes and Retirement seminar. So Taxes and Retirement, here's the dates. Thursday, October 3rd, and then again, Tuesday, October 8th. You don't have to attend both, just one or the other. It's at 6:30 p.m. at our offices in Clemens. You do have to, while there's no cost or obligation to attend, you do have to give us a call so we can reserve a seat for you. Lynn's going to answer the phone, and she'll take your name and get your email so that she can send you some information ahead of time. But that's it. No cost or obligation. So here's how you register to attend. Give us a call at 336-391-3600. 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. You can also visit us by going to our website, thewealthguardians.com. That's thewealthguardians.com, and click on the events tab. Now, we got a lot more of these to go through, tailoring your financial jersey for a perfect retirement fit. It's football season. We want to get through all of these, but we do have to go to a break. So we're going to cut to a break, ask you to stick around, and we'll be back in just a minute. But of course, before we go to a break, what do? We do the trivia question. So Garrett, are you ready?
I believe I am.
I'm asking you this as a historian buff, and full transparency, I would not have gotten this trivia question. Okay? I try to time these around the event when they happen. So 238 years ago in American history, on September 26, 1786, the first armed internal conflict in the fledgling United States after the Revolution took place in the farm fields of Massachusetts. It's named after the rebellion leader, Daniel Shays. Shays Rebellion is what it's called. It took place. Here's the question. What was the instigating circumstance that caused the Shays Rebellion? I did not know this. All right? Stick around for the answer to that trivia question and see if we stumped Garrett on the other side of this break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Garrett Ray. The show's The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB. News Talk 94.5 WPTI. 96.7 FM, WTOB. Welcome back to the Wealth Guardian Show, where we help you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne in the Wealth Guardian studio, along with Garrett Ray. In the second segment, we're going to continue our discussion on tailoring your financial jersey for a perfect retirement fit. Now, before we answer the trivia question that we left you hanging with and we left Garrett hanging with, I want to ask you this. Are you planning to retire? Probably yes is the answer to that. Have you met with a retirement income certified professional who is also a fiduciary? I hope that answer is yes, but if not, you got an invitation now. I'm going to invite you to take us up on a complimentary review of your current situation. As certified retirement planning specialists, we'll put together a customized written plan with strategies for portfolio allocation, income distribution, Social Security filing, and tax efficiency, with the additional benefit of often reducing both the risk and the fees of your current plan. So if you've put aside at least $400,000 and you want to take us up on this no-cost, no-obligation review, here's our number. Give us a call, 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. You can also go to our website, thewealthguardians.com. Let us show you in black and white how to retire the job and keep the paycheck. Okay, so let's go ahead now and get to this trivia question.
All right.
Garrett, are you ready?
I think so.
It was 238 years ago on September 26, 1786, the first armed internal conflict in the fledgling United States after the Revolution took place in the farm fields of Massachusetts. It was named after the rebellion leader, Daniel Shays. It was called Shays Rebellion. What was the instigating circumstance that caused this rebellion? Now, you're a historian buff. We're keeping our fingers crossed for you here, Garrett. What do you say?
Yeah, I think this has to do with an issue over the tax on whiskey. I know there was a whiskey rebellion and Shays Rebellion. I can't remember if they were blended or one of the same.
Blended, nice. We'll give you half. We'll give you half. It was based on taxes,
okay,
but it wasn't whiskey taxes. It was the taxes on farmers had to have paid for the Revolutionary War at the time. I'll just read this because it's kind of complicated. But a series of protests by American farmers against state and local governments against the enforcement of tax collections and judgments for debt. And farmers seized control of courthouse buildings to prevent governments from taking possession of their farms and putting people in what were called tax jails. So eventually resulted in was one of the factors that resulted in a national tax to help states pay their debts for the war. But it was basically they were enforcing taxes and throwing people in jail because they couldn't pay their taxes. And you can imagine from the farmers' point of view, the new United States didn't look that much different than the English government, who was taxing them out the wazoo as well. Right. So that was the first armed rebellion in the new United States. And you got it half right. It was based on taxes. So we'll give you that. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and get back to our topic here. We're bringing up jerseys because Garrett and I are football fans. I know a lot of you are out there as well. And so we're taking a look at how we can correlate jerseys to retirement planning. Sure. So the first one we talked about is every jersey has a number, right? What should your number in retirement be? So here's the next one. Some jerseys look great, but the team is terrible. All right. For me, the favorite, I'll be completely honest, my favorite jersey out there is the Buccaneers jersey. I think that's now that they changed it from that old one where it was just the guy in the...
Unfriendly, not the creamsicle.
Not the creamsicle one with the guy with the giant feather in his hat. No. So the new one is very cool indeed. So appearances aren't everything. It can be easy to get fooled by fancy brochures and slick salesmen, but just because something looks good doesn't mean that it has any real substance to it. I'm going to use a real life scenario that I had just only a couple of months ago.
Okay.
As we do when somebody comes in and sits down and goes through a financial planning process with us, we put together a financial plan for them. It's in a hardbound book, and it has all the stats on what their retirement can look like, and it's kind of a roadmap for retirement for them. We're not the only firm that does that. A lot of the big institutions do that as well. And a couple had come in here, and they showed me theirs that had been put together for them by another big firm in the area that they had been using as advisors for quite some time. And at the end of our process, after we had given them their plan, they showed me theirs. They hadn't showed it to me up front, which is okay. But I took a look at it, and the output numbers were very different. And they had asked, they said, well, why does your plan look so much different than these people's plan? And I looked at it, I said, man, this is a really nice plan. I mean, it was slick. You had, glossy paper and nice colors. It was obviously professionally designed. I think, this is pretty slick looking. But I started looking at it because I wanted to answer their question. Why was their output so different than ours? And there are certain assumptions you have to make, again, about inflation and whatnot. What's your average rate of return going to be? Sure. So I kind of knew what to look for to see if I could find out where the differences lie behind our saying they'd have X amount of dollars at age 100 and they're saying they'd have a different amount. Sure. And so I knew their finances at this point, since it was the fourth meeting. I knew their finances in and out. And I looked at it, was going over it, and I noticed that the person had them already filing for Social Security. And I asked them, I said, well, this plan says that you're already taking Social Security. We've been over this. You haven't taken Social Security yet, right? You haven't filed. Yeah. And they said, no, we haven't. I said, okay, I have no idea why this person, did he ask you that question? They said, well, no, not recently. They might have when we first joined with them several years ago. So, okay, so he just put out this plan for you because it had like a recent date on it.
Right.
So he just put out this plan for you, and he didn't ask you whether or not you've already taken Social Security, or he doesn't know whether or not you've already taken Social Security. So that's one reason that it's different. He says that you're already getting this amount. And I kept looking. I said, well, here's another interesting thing. It says that your spending is X amount of dollars a month. But we've already been over this. We've done a fine, detailed plan of what your expenses are now and what they're going to be in retirement. This number is nowhere close to what you told me. Do you know where he got this number? Yeah. And they said, no, we must have told him this years ago, and that's just what he used. It's like, okay, well, it's nowhere close to what we've just been going over. So we can see where, and they started to understand, okay, this plan is pretty slick looking, but it's just not accurate.
Exactly. And it's, if you've got something that looks nice and pretty on the outside, but there's no substance, there's no relevance to that packaging, I'll call it. It's basically no different than
a sample.
Yeah, to bring back, the NFL analogy, it's no different than trying to run like a 1980s offensive scheme today. You get blown out of the water. It's way too slow developing. So nice, slick package there, Mr. Advisor, but your plan's behind the times, if you will. You got old data, and you need to have a relevant conversation with your client. We do see this from time to time, and it just emphasizes the point that having that current, relevant relationship with your clients and your advisor, for the listeners out there, is of the utmost importance. You owe it to yourself, and the advisor owes it to you as well.
Yeah, and it needs to be updated on an annual basis, right? Absolutely. We are fiduciaries. We're retirement income certified professionals. We are obligated to act in our clients' best interests. We meet with all of our clients, or at least we extend an invitation to meet with each and every one of our clients on an annual basis so that we can pull back up that retirement plan and update it with any numbers that might need adjusting from the previous time that we met with them to make sure that we are staying on course. If your financial planner puts out a plan for you that looks pretty good, but then he never updates it with you, maybe your spending adjusted a little bit, maybe up or down. Maybe your investments change. Maybe you got an inheritance. And if that's never calculated in there, your plan isn't accurate. So you need not only to have it good from the beginning, but you need to keep updating it and making sure that you're staying on track.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes straight into our next topic here. Jerseys do change over time as sports teams try to update their look and update their scheme. Same thing is true with your financial plan. And I would say that, that is a two-way street. The relationship should be not one where the client is sitting back saying, well, the advisor should do all this for me. No. We have to work together. If things change in your life, you owe it to yourself to inform your financial advisor so that he or she can adjust your plan. And by the way, your financial advisor should be curious about what's going on in your life. Again, asking you for at least an annual review and trying to coax that information out of you. So it works both ways. The key thing about that relationship is that it has to be updated because life, we know, is going to throw us curveballs. There's something that's going to happen. You're going to have to buy possibly a new car coming up.
Right.
You may have to replace the roof on your home unexpectedly.
Right.
Air conditioning goes out. We've got a possible, we've never thought about this before, but now in retirement, we're thinking about suddenly moving to Florida. How does that change our plan? I'm sure it does.
Yep.
So as these things start to change, it should never be a surprise to your financial advisor. It should be, hey, we've got new information to share. Can you please run some numbers for us and give us your thoughts? And hopefully that advisor is coming back to you with 1, 2, maybe 3 possible courses of action, and then putting the ball back in your court because you're still the captain of the ship, but the advisor is basically plotting out different courses that you could take.
One of the other things, Garrett, that could change that people don't plan for is taxes. Tax brackets and tax laws. Just because you've got a financial plan that is 15 years old and it's never been updated, how accurate are those tax brackets that it's planning for? So bringing that up, Garrett, we have our taxes and retirement workshop coming up. We do this once or twice a year. We're getting near tax season, the end of the year where we're going to, December is when we calculate all of our taxes. Yeah. So if you have never sat through a discussion or a seminar on what taxes look like in retirement for you, it's very different than how taxes looked for you before you retired. And I mentioned this in the first segment. I'll mention it again. The easy offering up here is provisional income. If you have not filed for Social Security, you probably have no idea what provisional income is. You want to know what provisional income is. If you have the option of changing some things around in your financial situation to where only 50 or even 0% of your Social Security is taxed, as opposed to 85% of it being taxed, you would probably want to know that. And if there are things that you have to do a few years ahead of time to help make sure that that happens, you probably want to take those steps a few years ahead of time instead of at the last minute. And your advisor says, well, in order for us to do this to make sure that only 50% of your Social Security is taxed as opposed to 85, we would have had to have done a few things a few years back.
Right.
Now it's too late. So if you don't want to fall in that situation, please take us up on our offer to sit in on our taxes and retirement workshop. It is 2 dates. You only have to attend one, Thursday, October 3rd, and then again on Tuesday, October 8th at 6:30 p.m. at our offices in Clemens, North Carolina at the Broy Hills. No cost, no obligation to attend, but you do have to register. So give us a call, 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. We'd love to see you there. But again, you do have to call and register. Garrett, we're running out of time here. You want to throw anything out there?
No, I think we covered. I wish we had time for one more topic.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can throw this in next week as well, because we got lots more here to go with. All right. Well, folks, unfortunately, that is all the time we have this week. I want to thank you for joining us, spending a little bit of your weekend morning with us. We hope the rest of your weekend is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne, along with Garrett Ray, the show's The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And I want to remind you, sound financial plans do not create themselves. This is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. This is 96.7 FM WTOB.